Welcome to Summer in the Psalms. Today we'll be covering Psalm chapter 4. Last week we talked about Psalm 3, which was called a morning hymn. This is called an evening hymn. It's penned by King David as he was going through some difficulty in his life, and he was actually under attack, and maybe you can relate to that. Maybe you've been under attack in some way. And so in this text, he seems to be under attack through what people are saying. So he's being verbally attacked for sure, and that may be through slander, gossip, or other lies that people may be spreading against him. And so he is dealing with this. And there's a couple of temptations that we face when we find ourselves in this situation that I want to get to. But as we dive into these 8 verses, one of the things I want you to think about is we tend to separate people into 2 categories. So you have people that you look at as these are my friends, and so we separate that group into the people that we think that they are for us. They do things that are for us. They speak to us in a manner that says they're for us. Then there's another category of people that we would say these are the people who we feel like are against us. These are the people that we would classify maybe as enemies, and you may not use that terminology, but they're the people in your life that you have a hard time getting along with, that you'd rather not be around. And so we all have to deal with the people who are difficult to be around in our life. And so as David writes this song, he's writing us to tell us how he handled his situation, and we can learn from David and grow through our situation in our relationship with God, but also in relationship to other people. So what did David do when he found himself in a situation like this? He talked to God about it. He didn't talk to a bunch of other people about it that we know of, but we do know that he went to God about it, and he prayed to God about it, and he believed that God was listening to him, and he believed that God was at work on his behalf. And so as we dive into this text, I want you to think about, is there anybody in your life that you feel like is against you? Maybe they've spoken ill of you, and so you're struggling with that. And so you'll be able to relate to the words of David here. So here's what he says at the very beginning of the psalm. A lot of times it'll have a caption, which is in the Hebrew as well. It's to the choir master with stringed instruments, a psalm of David. So it's a song that was written to be sang in worship. It's the Holy Spirit moved David to pen these words. And so David begins by going to the Lord. He says, "Answer me when I call, O God of my righteousness." Quick note there is that David refers to God as his righteousness, that he doesn't see himself as self-righteous, but righteous in the Lord based on what the Lord has done for him. And that is really an Old Testament guy, Old Testament man living in a New Testament manner. And that's all throughout the Old Testament as well, is because we are not saved by our righteousness, even in the Old Testament, but by the righteousness of God on our behalf. But it's because of that he feels like he can go to God and talk to him about the things that is going on in his life. And you today, you can go to God with whatever's going on in your life, especially in relationship trouble. You can go to God and know that he listens. He says, "You have given me relief when I was in my distress." And so in the past, David knows that God has listened to him, he's answered his prayer, and it's based on that past faithfulness of God that he presently comes to God and has hope for the future and the present because of how God has listened to him in the past. He says, "Be gracious to me and hear my prayer." And then he launches in to what the problem is. He says, "O men, how long shall my honor be turned into shame? How long will you love vain words and seek after lies?" And then he says, "Selah," which is a pause. And so you think about what his situation was. And so it's clear in the text that David is going through a very difficult time where people have been attacking him verbally. This may have been a time, maybe he wrote it when Saul was after him, or maybe when his son betrayed him, or maybe when the priest turned on him. We don't know exactly when this was, but we do know that he was struggling with this. And so then he turns to the Lord and he says, "But know that the Lord has set apart the godly for himself. The Lord hears when I call to him." He's certain that God hears him. And then he says this, he says, almost preaching to himself, "Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent. Offer right sacrifices and put your trust in the Lord. There are many who say, 'Who will show us some good?' Lift up the light of your face upon us, O Lord. You have put more joy in my heart than they have when their grain and wine abound. So when they're prospering, you've given me joy than when my enemies are prospering. In peace I will both lie down and sleep, for you alone, O Lord, make me dwell in safety. And so there's two temptations that I think we all face when we're attacked verbally, when we feel like people are against us. One is that we tend to get angry. And because of the nature of anger, when you get angry, you only really see one way to go. And so that's usually to strike back in anger. So if you've been attacked, what do? You attack. But David writes and says, in your anger, do not sin. This is echoed in the New Testament when Paul writes to us and he says, be angry, do not sin. So it's possible for you to be angry and not sin. And that's really where we want to go in our relationships is, there are things that you can be rightly angry about. I would call that like holy anger, godly anger. It's the things that God would get angry about. So, if you look at your life right now and you say, okay, do I have a right to be angry about this? Is it something that God would be angry? And so you can be angry, but you can't be angry in sin. So being angered about something that was unjust or unfair doesn't mean that you have a license to do wrong. And so anger, if you don't control it, will lead you to doing the wrong thing. And so what David is writing and what Paul echoes is, hey, when you get angry, do not sin. And the thing is we really want to get back at someone when they have done us wrong. So if somebody verbally attacked me, I would like to verbally attack them. I remember years ago, I had a leader in the church who slandered me, and I really wanted to go at him and verbally attack him. And so I remember a friend of mine reminded me of a passage in Exodus when the Lord tells Moses, be still, let the Lord fight your battle. And that's really what David is saying. Be still, let the Lord fight your battle. Don't be angry, but be still and trust him. Vengeance is mine, says the Lord. And so it's really hard to shift sometimes when you're angry to trust God. But that's exactly what David says he does, as he says, don't sin, ponder your hearts and be silent before the Lord. Trust him, offer right sacrifices, do right things, and trust in the Lord. So if you're angry about something that someone's done against you, be careful not to do wrong against them. And then also, one of the temptations in these situations is there are many who say, who will show us some good? And so it's easy not only to get angry and sin, but it's also to fall into cynicism. Cynicism is when you begin to think that nobody really cares about you, or maybe everyone is against you. And the reality of it is somebody cares about you somewhere, and not everyone is against you, but it's easy to take that stance when you're being attacked, when things are not going your way. And cynicism really ultimately leads you into depression. And so we want to get a hold of this. And the question that is being asked is the people are asking of David, who's going to show him some good? And the answer to that question is, well, God will show some good. And so even if everyone is against you and you feel like nobody cares, it's not a reason to be cynical. It actually, you look toward God, because what we discover with God is he cares. We can look at the past. David can look at his past, how God has been faithful with him, with the bear, the lion, Goliath, and all these other situations, to know God's been faithful in the past. And so who will show him some good? God will. So today, maybe you find yourself cynical and jaded because of the attacks on you. And so what I would say to you is do like David did. Who's going to be for you? God will be for you. And he says to God, lift up my countenance. When you get cynical, you get down and you get depressed, and you kind of get a Eeyore mentality, and so your countenance falls. And so he says, lift up my countenance, because God is on your side. Who else do you need? The Apostle Paul writes and says, if God be for us, who can be against us? And so really, when you have God, you have the one person that you need above all else. And so if he is for you, then who can be against you? And so we can live, we can love, we can be hopeful. We can even be like Jesus and be for our friends, but also in the midst of being attacked, we can be for our enemies, which is really difficult to do. But Jesus modeled that for us, because when he was not only attacked verbally and physically, what did Jesus do? Father, forgive them. They don't know what they're doing. He didn't lose his countenance because his hope was in the Lord, because he knew the Father was for him. He knew that he can endure that suffering and his countenance would be lifted up. He could live with gladness, and he could lay down to sleep at night. And so today, maybe you've got some people that you feel like have been really against you. Maybe it's a boss or coworker. Maybe it even is somebody in your home. Maybe it's a friend. Maybe it's even somebody at your church. You've been under attack. So how will you handle it? So two of the things that we want to look at and just land on is, look, be angry, but don't sin. Fight cynicism in your life. And how you do that is you look to the Lord, and you know that even when everybody is against me, God is for me. And so remind yourself today, as you pray, go to God and be reminded that he is listening to you, and that he cares about you, and that ultimately God is for you. And if God is for you, who can really be against you?